I am Professor Esila, the director of the Operations Management Academy, and here today I will walk you through what is operations management. First, we'll talk about operations, and then second, we'll define management, and we will put those two terms together to actually tell you what operations management entails. And we'll also talk about the topics that will be in your operations management course if you were to take one at a university. That's what I plan to talk to you about today. Bye. So let's get started with our presentation today. So the question is, what is operations management? So we'll cover this in two videos. So this is going to be the first one, and I will follow up with a second video on this. So to talk about operations management, we need first to know what is operations with S. Then the next thing will be what is management. Then we can put the two concepts together and define what we mean by operations management. And then we're going to go through the topics that we cover when we teach operations management. Been doing this for 20 years, and you are in good hands. So what is operations with S? Operations is a department in a company. In an organization, a group of people who work to produce goods and services that the company can sell or the company can just distribute. Though that group of people, we call them operations. Just like any department, we in an organization, we have the accounting department, we have the human resources department, so there are many departments. So this one is called operations. Their job is to produce goods and services that the company will sell or just distribute. So now that we know what is operations with an S, then we can learn how operations works. What we do as operations, a department, is it is a transformation process. A transformation process where operations transforms input into output. The input can be raw material, it can be another product that we just transform to get a new one. So in this example, that what we see here is a transformation process that changes parts, put them together, and then build a car. So as we can see here, the input here could be whatever the parts are, and then we have an assembly line that would put them together to get a car. So that's an example of operations. So now the next thing that we're going to talk about is management, because we want to first know what is operations and then what is management, then we can talk about operations management, right? So management is all about first planning. We plan. What does it mean, planning? We set the goals, what we want to achieve, and then we formulate strategy to achieve our goal. And then third thing in planning is developing plans. So planning is not just developing plans. It's first setting the goals. Second, formulate strategy to achieve the goals. Third, then you can then develop plan to coordinate and integrate activity to achieve the goals. So that's planning. The second thing in management is organizing. You want to make sure that you can make arrangement in terms of work, who's going to do what. Provide a structure to that arrangement so that we can actually know who will do what and when that will be done. So when you can structure and make an arrangement of all the activity that will be involved, we call that organizing in management. The third part of management is staffing, right? You want to make sure that you can bring the right people in the company that will actually help you achieve your goals. And then the third part here is what we call leading. What a leader does is you motivate your people you energize them. But when you motivate people and you energize them, right, you need to guide them. Because if you have a car that is full of gas and you don't have a driver, and you just you put the key in ignition and then you start the car, you don't know where it's going to go. So when people are energized, they are motivated, you have to provide directions. You have to tell them exactly what you want them to do. So that's a leading. And then the last part of management is what we call controlling. So if you do not exert controlling, you will be in trouble, because controlling is the only way to know whether everything is happening according to your plan, according to the goals that you set before during the planning. So controlling is to figure out whether your activities are being performed according to the plan. So that if you find a gap between what is happening and what you did in the planning, what you thought is going to happen, then you will have to bring corrective actions. And so again, management is about planning, organizing, staffing, leading, and controlling. So those 5 elements are what you need to be a good manager. Now that we know the definition of operations with an S, a department in an organization responsible for producing goods and services that the customer are willing to pay for, right? And then we know the 5 pillars of management: planning, organizing, staffing, leading, and controlling. Then now we can move on and actually define what operations management is. So what is operations management? Operations management is you plan your operations, you execute your operations, and you make sure that you control that your operations are being performed according to the plan, right? That you are actually achieving the goals. So that will be the definition of operations management. Next, here we're going to talk about the topics area in operations management courses. So if you were to take an operations management course at a university, it doesn't matter what university you go to, what university you decide to go to. When you're going to take an operations management course, this is going to come in your 3rd year or 4th year. So the first year you come as a freshman, the 2nd year you are sophomore, the 3rd year you're a junior, and the 4th year you're a senior in your bachelor degree program. So you're going to take operations management during your 3rd year or your 4th year. It doesn't matter what university you go to. So you're going to have these 11 topics in operations management that you're going to go through when you decide to take an operations management course. And it is usually a required course. It is a core course in every bachelor degree in business administration. Doesn't matter the major. You will have to take that class if you go through the College of Business. So what are the topics that you will have to study when you are taking operations management? So here I have 11 of them. These cover almost everything that we usually teach in operations management course. But some schools, some universities might decide to just teach 10 of them or 9 of them, depending on what their programs are. So do not expect to have all of them in just one class. So what are those topics? The first of those topics I will walk you through, I think maybe 6 of them, and then in the next video we'll talk about the rest, because I don't want the video to be long. So the first topic here is going to be our operation strategy. What are we going to learn in our operation strategy? It could be a chapter, or I will just call it the topics. How would operations achieve its mission, right? Remember that we have the corporate strategy that decides what the company wants to do, and every department, every business function in the organization will then build their strategy to support the corporate strategy, to support the organization strategy. So does operations. I told you before, operations is a department in an organization, in a company. So operations they will build their own strategy to support the corporate strategy, the organization strategy. So what is the operation strategy? The question here is simple. The operation strategy answers this question: how will our operations achieve its mission, which is to add value during the transformation process, right? The essence of operations is to add value during the transformation process that we talked about before, right? So we will make sure that we can balance demand and supply. So we have supply on one side of the equation and we have demand on the other side. So operations will make sure that they can balance supplies and demand. They can satisfy the demand and they can make sure that they receive what they need to actually make the products and the services that they are tasked to do. So the operation strategy is going to help us to know how we're going to do it. How are we actually going to make those products? How are we actually going to provide the services? Right. So the first thing here, once we have our organization strategy, the corporate strategy, that's define the direction where to go. Let's say the corporate strategy here is about being the cost leadership, for example, the one who lead with low cost, for example. Then operations going to pick up and run low cost operations to support the organization's strategy, which is low cost. So here we will do things that I'm going to tell you about right now. The first one, as you see, number one, is to define the competitive priority. Once we know the competitive priority of our organization, right? Because as we're making products, other companies are also making their own products. So we're going to compete in a given market. So we need to know our competitive priority so that we can beat our competitors in terms of products, in terms of services. So once we know our competitive priority, this could be competitive priority such as differentiation, cost leadership, responsiveness, or we want to lead with top quality like Apple does, or on-time delivery like Amazon, or we just want to make sure that we have flexibility and also thinking about our strategic option for supply chain design when we're going to do that, because we need our inputs, right? And once we have our input, we transform them into the products, and once we have the product, we need supply chain to help us deliver those products to our customer. So we're going to make sure that we build our competitive capabilities, because we have competitive priorities, which is exactly what we would like to achieve, right? And then we have competitive capability, what we can actually achieve, what we can actually deliver on right now. So there will always be a gap between our competitive priorities and our competitive capabilities. So we will have to close the gap. So that's the operation strategy. That's what we want to make sure that we can do to achieve our competitive priorities. So next here, we're going to talk about the second topics here that you will have to learn in operations management. That topic is process strategy and analysis. We make our products, processes are what actually deliver, right? What actually make the process or the product or deliver services. So here in process strategy, we will want to know how will our processes achieve our operation strategy, right? So we need to learn about our process structure, whether in service or in products. So process structure for manufacturing and then the process structure for services. We usually use something that we call the product process matrix for manufacturing and then the customer contact for the services. So you will have to know your process structure and then know the process decision area, such as customer involvement in terms of capital, how much is going to cost us, flexibility, and the strategic fit. Everything needs to fit so that we can actually support our organization's strategy, right? And then make sure that you control your processes, because sometimes variation will kick in and they will not be able to produce the products that you want. In terms of analysis, we're going to use things like process flow charts to actually map the process and see what it is and try to correct. Six Sigma is one of the tools that we use here. Time study, the learning curve, process data analysis, and today with artificial intelligence, we also learn how to integrate automation in our processes to be more competitive. So the next topic here is number 3, which is you're going to have to learn forecasting. So it could be chapter 3 or it could be chapter 8, 9, 10, whatever, but you will have to cover it. The question here is what is the expected demand? Before you even start building the products, you need to know what's the demand is, right? So we want to do that for the next 6 months or next year. So, but we want to make sure that we integrate forecast accuracy to make sure that our forecasts are accurate, right? If not, we're going to end up with a lot of inventory. So on the supply side, we're going to have a lot of supply but less demand. So we want to make sure that our forecasts are accurate. So we use qualitative forecasting techniques and quantitative forecasting techniques, including time series, causal method. So the forecast error here, because your forecast will always have an error, right? Forecasting is not an exact science, right? So you will always have an error. You have to monitor the forecast error and control them, right? So that's why we use things like control chart and tracking signal to make sure that our forecast error is in control. So the next topic that we will go through here will be quality management to ensure that we produce high quality products for our customer, right? We provide high quality services. So concepts like total quality principle, you will have to learn them. You have to go through Six Sigma to know all the quality, the types of course that you have to learn when you are learning quality management. For example, the appraisal cost, you need to know what that is, right? You need to know any types of costs that might come because it will cost you if you are running quality products. And then the statistical control in terms of process capability. All the indexes are our process capable of producing goods and services that our customer will be willing to pay for. We will go through continuous improvement. We will go through ISO standard so that to guide us when we do our quality management. The system approach, because you need all together to perform well. And then today with artificial intelligence, how it can help us to have quality products. Control chart for attributes, control chart for variables, and the data analysis will also be part of it. So the element number 5 here in operations management is going to be your supply chain design. You need to be able to design your supply chain in such a way that it can support your operations, right? So the question here is, how do we source, how do we get the products, how do we get the raw material, and how do we fulfill our customers' orders? So you will go through strategic option for supply chain design. That's going to be responsive supply chain or an efficient supply chain. You need to know which one you should actually use for a given product. And then you would build your supply chain strategy, and today digital supply network is something that brings visibility into your supply chain. The execution and then supply chain automation. Today we have autonomous supply chains, and that's something that is gaining a lot of momentum. Know your supply chain model and how to analyze it. Do your supply chain digital transformation using AI and using some models that are available out there. And then how do you use your supply chain efficiency curve to know how efficient is your supply chain? And we will also talk about supply chain disruptions because they usually happen, right? And how to build resilience when you have a problem so that you can actually adjust and come back to normal, right? And even be better than before. And then the topic number 6 here is going to be your inventory management. The goal here is to minimize your inventory cost, right? But at the same time, you want to make sure that you have the inventory that your operations need to fulfill their mission. So we're going to go through inventory planning strategy, the types of inventory, the inventory management model like the economic order quantity and the other one, the continuous review a system of inventory where the inventory position is known as we withdraw the items from inventory, and then the periodic review system. Also, we will teach you what are inventory costs and how to monitor your inventory, especially echelon inventory along your supply chain. You have supply chain is a sequence of organizations that are involved in producing and delivering a good. So at every stage you have inventory. How do you manage that type of inventory? And then you need your inventory key performance indicators, as we call them, inventory KPI, critical measures, so that you know whether you're doing well or not. So in the next video, we will talk about the other topics, the 5 other topics that we couldn't talk about today. As a summary, we went through the definition of operations management. We first defined what was operations with S, a department in an organization. That department is tasked with producing goods and services that the customer will be willing to pay for. And then we talk about management, where we need first to plan, right? We need to organize, and we need to staff. And the fourth was we need to be a good leader, we need to lead, and then the last one being controlling, the 5 part of operations. And then we said that operations management is about planning, executing, and controlling activities that produces goods and services that customers are willing to pay for. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, right? Subscribe to our channel, and every time we have a new video, you will be the first to be aware, and we will continue to talk about these exciting topics. Thank you. Bye bye.